Welcome and bienvenidos to Cultural Capacity, a podcast sponsored by Educator Aide Incorporated, where our team is committed to supporting individuals and organizations on their journey of self-aware leadership, emotional wellness, and development of effective cross-cultural communications. Let's get ready to explore the following topics together by biting into them with little pieces that go really deep to examine ourselves. Topics like bias, culture, cultural psychology, cultural neuroscience, diversity, equity, inclusion, and racial equity. Our episodes are all 10 minutes or less and intended to serve as introspective tools for you as the individual leader or the teams that you're leading. Be sure to check out the links in the podcast description where you can sign up for our free quarterly subscription, Better Community, as well as tap in and submit your questions via the voice message button. Let's get ready to learn together. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you find yourself as you're listening to this episode of the Cultural Capacity Podcast. I'm your host for this episode, Justine Gonzalez, and founder and CEO of Educator Aide Incorporated. I want to just say thank you to our incredible team. As this podcast continues to grow, we couldn't do it without you, the subscriber, the follower, the listener, and those of you who continue to share this when you find value. Every episode, as you know, is designed to go very deep in 15 minutes or less with one key question that many of us, including myself, find ourselves wrestling and grappling with as we continue to expand our capacity in the world as we serve and understand ourselves culturally, as well as try to understand the context and unique cultural origin stories of others. So let's dive in. I do want to share a quick celebration. We have once again made a top 100 podcast list, this time in the Philippines. So thank you so much again to our listeners and subscribers. Let's dive in to this episode's question. How do I maintain my focus in the midst of chaos? So this is something that comes up a lot, especially in executive coaching sessions with leaders I serve. And one of the key texts I do want to shout out is called the 4 Disciplines, or 4DX for short, but the 4 Disciplines of Execution. My co-author, Augie Amua, first introduced me to this text a couple years ago, and it is an incredible resource. So I wanted to put that there. I also have linked in the show notes. He and I discussed this a bit on an Instagram live. We got into a bit of a debate, if you will, which we love to do, about whose ownness is it for communicating needs in the workplace. So if somebody leaves their job, is it more the organization's fault? Is it the individual's? Is it a bit of both? We know there's also anomalies and unique situations, but be sure to check out that conversation, which I have linked in the show notes. Okay, so back to this episode question. How do I maintain focus in the midst of chaos? We know that often our world can feel like a whirlwind. Our lives can feel this way for any given reason. It could be death in the family, a new life, right? Having new children or a baby, getting married to somebody, divorce. I'm naming a lot of big life events because regardless of, I just always think about this visual image. Regardless of, like last night, there was a massive storm where I happen to be right now geographically, right? And I went out early for a walk this morning. There's debris, there's huge limbs and branches down, and you can see the destruction from last night, but it's peaceful and calm. The sun is shining brilliantly. So often, even when our world is in chaos, there are ways that we can still try to maintain focus and also maintain our peace, which is very important. So, one of the things that I wanted to share as we dive into this question is actually from me and Augie's text, the social capital quotient. It's on page 25 of this text, and we actually have a visual we developed that really helps you kind of self-assess where you find yourself and if you are being passively engaged as a leader or actively engaged as a leader, and how that translates to the way you spend your time inside and outside of work. But mainly, this was examining the more professional lens. So I wanted to reference that because one of the things that really stuck out to me about this list, and again, we're not saying one is better than the other, one is good, one is bad. These things just are, and it's an observation to help us become more self aware as leaders, myself included. For example, on one side of our graphic that we have in the text on page 25, for the column that says how passively engaged leaders spend time, there's one note that says developing lists so items can be checked off. Now, on the actively engaged leader side, right across from that, it says determining daily priorities that have the most impact on strategic goals. And so I wanted to point that those two elements out in this graphic just very quickly to give you an idea here that both can be effective, both can feel productive. For myself personally, and how I want to talk about maintaining focus, even when there's so many things that might be happening in our global context, but also in our personal and professional lives. Um, I find myself really going back to this one and leaning more towards this side so that I can maintain peace, leaning more towards the side of the actively engaged leader. And that is determining my daily priorities that have the most impact on strategic goals. I find when I'm in a season where things seem to feel like a whirlwind, so to speak, that when I'm more on that passively engaged side of just developing a bunch of lists, yes, I absolutely have multiple journals, and then I end up having multiple lists, and then maybe one's in this bag and one's in this purse. Many of you could probably relate as I'm saying this, but I find myself that I do not feel as much at peace or focused in my day to day activities as a leader when I'm focused more on just task lists. So for me, I tend to err more towards those determining the daily priorities. And one way that I do that, it's okay to still have your lists. I believe me, I still have my lists. But one of those things that I do is physically, you can take 3 Post-it notes, and from your different task lists, after you've examined your calendar for the day, whenever you feel that feeling coming up, right? Kind of you I notice shifts in my breathing. Maybe I'm tensing up my jaw or my fists a little bit more because I'm feeling a little anxious or on edge because things seem to be moving so fast. And to get myself to slow down, I will do a review of those items, right? Task lists, calendars, etc. And I will determine, what do I need to accomplish today? What are the 3 priorities that if I do nothing else today, these will be the most high leverage to reaching my current goals, not only personally, but for my company, for others that I serve through my company, etc. And I literally write those big 3 on those 3 Post-it notes so that at the end of the day, I can rip them up, I can crumple them and throw them away. But it's a symbolic and also this feeling of I did stick to something and I still maintained my focus even in the midst of chaos. And so I wanted to share that quickly. And again, please be sure that you check out our resources and our show notes, especially that Instagram Live. We call it virtual coffee, that I got the pleasure of doing and co hosting with my co author of the Social Capital Quotient text, Augie Amua, and myself. So, again, check that out. And we can't thank you enough. Be sure to hit follow and subscribe and continue to send in your questions. Thank you. Take care. And let's continue to get compassionately curious together. Thank you so much for showing up for yourself today and tuning in to this episode of the Cultural Capacity Podcast. We're glad you're here. If you found value in this episode, be sure to share out with your social networks. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a review on Apple. You know, all the things. Finally, don't forget to take advantage of our free quarterly subscription that is in our podcast description. The link is right there. It's called Better Community, and we would love to have you join us there too. Until next time, take care.